Welcome to Ask Dr. Mingle, the Q&A series where we take your questions about quality programs and the transition to value-based care. I'm Kyle Breckel. I'm a digital marketing specialist at Mingle Health, and I'll be hosting this episode along with Dr. Dan Mingle, founder and executive chairman of Mingle Health. Good morning, Dr. Mingle.
Good morning, Kyle, and good day to all of you tuning in. It's great to see you again. I'm Dr. Dan Mingle. I'm here to answer your questions to the best of my ability.
Before we get into today's questions, I want to invite you to send us your questions. You can leave your questions in a comment on LinkedIn or YouTube, or you can email them directly to us at hello@minglehealth.com. And we have a special set of questions today. Dr. Mingle, you recently attended the NACOS Fall Conference, and each question we're featuring in this episode is one that maybe you were asked at NACOS or on a topic you noticed some confusion about during the conference.
That's right, Kyle.
So our first question today comes from Patricia, and Patricia asks, what is an eCQM?
Great question, Patricia. eCQM stands for Electronic Clinical Quality Measure. Specifications for eCQMs are exclusively electronic. There's no other way except through an electronic pathway to collect the data for or calculate the eCQMs. Specifications, in fact, are published in coding language to theoretically be automatically inserted into quality measurement software. I'm not aware that happens very often. I think people generally tend to read them, interpret them, and customize the insertion into the software. They have to be produced end-to-end, excluding submission itself. But end-to-end, they have to be produced with certified software. End-to-end means once you collect the data from the patient, it's documented in an EHR electronically. It's extracted by an automated query from the EHR. It's calculated and aggregated through an automatic process. There can be no manual chart abstraction, no manual correction of scores or data involved in the calculations. The submission can be updated to CMS by the practice, by the eCQM vendor, whether that's the HR or someone else, or by a qualified registry. Certification standards are set. That is a certification of the entities that are involved in this extraction and calculation are set by the Office of the National Coordinator of Health IT, that is ONC, and there are several independent vendors who are engaged by ONC to perform that certification and keep it current, updated. Many EHRs are certified to produce eCQM submissions, and there are a few independent vendors as well that cross EHR platforms. Typically, EHR-generated eCQMs require strict compliance with a specific documentation workflow. Deviation from that workflow often reduces measured performance. There are many HIT vendors that calculate eCQMs, and there can be multiple vendors involved in a certain getting a certain set of submissions together. Each has to have current certification to qualify for the as an eCQM. In this year, this 2022 year, there are 48 eCQMs maintained for the Quality Payment Program, including the 3 that are required for APM, the APP, which is APM performance pathway, or what ACOs are now required to do, or in some fashion. There's some clarification to that I'll give in another question-answer session. And EHRs are often certified only on a subset of the measures. It doesn't make sense for them to include measures that aren't needed by the customers, the clients that are using their product. So you often can't get a full set of the 48 measures from any one EHR. So thanks for that question, Patricia. Let me know if there's any further confusion. Happy to clarify additionally.
And our next question today is from John. And John asks, what is a MIPS CQM?
Well, thanks, John. A great follow-up to Patricia's question. A MIPS CQM is a clinical quality measure that was designed for use in Medicare's merit-based incentive payment system. In the 2022 performance year, there are 174 measures maintained for that program, including the 3 used in the new APM performance pathway, the APP. Specifications for MIPS CQMs are generally provided in natural language, and the qualified registries that use and submit these measures tend to interpret those specifications into processes in their own software. Qualifications to be a qualified registry are set by CMS, and the initial qualification and maintenance of that qualification is mediated by CMS within an annual process. Data for MIPS CQMs can come from any valid source, whether it's an EHR, whether it's an electronic registry, even a paper chart. Can be electronically extracted or manually abstracted to be valid in those measures. It just has to be valid data. There are 2 types of qualified registries, open and closed. A closed registry is typically built and maintained by a practice, a healthcare organization, or some other membership group. It can be a professional society, it can be a physician hospital organization, it can be it can be anyone who's interested in healthcare data. A closed registry is available only to the members of the group and need only support the measures that are important to that group. An open registry is available to anyone. Medicare requires open registries to support all measures. So that's basically the layout. Thanks, John, for the question. In another answer to another question, I'll contrast MIPS CQMs with eCQMs.
Okay, yeah. And our third question today is from Liz to build on the first 2 questions. Liz asks, what is the difference between an eCQM and a MIPS CQM?
Well, Liz, I'm glad you asked. It fits right into the last 2 questions. eCQMs are collected from EHR data and calculated using ONC certified technology. MIPS CQMs are collected from any valid data source, including EHR data, and are calculated by a qualified registry. Both are valid for the 3 measures required by the APM performance pathway, the APP. eCQMs tend to be exclusive to the EHR, exclusive of a certain documentation style, even exclusive to the specific instance of an EMR implementation. MIPS CQMs tend to be inclusive. They can cast a broader net to accommodate multiple different documentation styles in the EHR. They can pull data from multiple EHRs or multiple other alternative data sources like tumor registries, diabetic registries, anything that exists in your system, and can even include manually generated, manually abstracted data. There are 48 eCQMs maintained for the quality program compared to 174 for MIPS CQMs. 26 of the measures are overlap, and there's 22 eCQMs that are not represented in MIPS CQMs, and there are 158 measures that are exclusive MIPS CQMs that are not available in the eCQM menu. eCQMs tend to be specific to an EHR. They typically require tight, rigid compliance with EHR improved documentation workflows, where, as I said earlier, MIPS CQMs can cast a broader net for any documentation style. Like everything, has a little difficulty pulling data out of text-only fields. Although an advantage with the MIPS CQMs is that you can take a list of your performance not met patients and abstract data from the chart that it wasn't accessible electronically, and it's valid to update those to correct your submissions. Benchmarks used for scoring quality measures are different for eCQMs versus MIPS CQMs. When I say benchmarks in this context, you're scored on your quality submission by your decile rank or little variation on percentile rank of all scorees. So it's graded on a curve. And the eCQM grading has an appearance of being more lenient than the MIPS CQMs. That is, at a given performance level, say 80%, your percentile rank in eCQMs will tend to be better than your percentile rank in MIPS CQMs. However, that's because eCQMs tend to undervalue performance. Again, if you're not right on the documentation requirement to hit the queries and hit the scoring, then your patient, even if they received perfect care, is downgraded to a performance not met status. So even though you'd appear perhaps to get a better score if you submit eCQMs, that's because you're probably not getting your full credit for your scoring, and you're likely to get that full credit, or you can engineer that full credit more readily into a MIPS CQM submission. So that's basically the difference. Again, any more clarification, happy to dig a little more deeply in, but thanks again, Liz, for that great question.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. And our fourth and final question today is from Joan. And Joan asks, what is digital quality measurement?
Great question, Joan. Medicare introduced this term into the vernacular in 2022 rulemaking. Or I should say rulemaking for the 2022 performance year, which of course happened in 2021. It was introduced in the context of a view of Medicare's intentions at this time or at that time, I should say, for quality measurement. There's been a lot of misperceptions generated by that introduction. It didn't actually, the term hasn't been used in any rules or rulemaking or options that are available. And at the NACOS conference the fall of 2022, a spokesperson for CMS, that is Molly McHarris, described the concept as signaling a CMS intention to embrace quality measurement that incorporates a wide variety of digital sources, not just EHR data. Think remote monitoring. Think a direct capture of patient input. It's it's a descriptive concept. It's not a measure type like web interface eCQM or MIPS CQMs. Now, and it doesn't even signal the intent to close off any manual input into MIPS CQM reporting. I would gather from other comments that long-term Medicare would like to see us move entirely to digital to digital measurement, so that we're not relying on any manual abstraction or overwriting of any data. I don't see that coming very soon, because they also have a goal to make reduce the burden of measurement and continue to support small and rural practices that that can't be as quick to digitize all their data as others. And as a qualified registry, it doesn't concern me much either. If they reduce manual inputs, it'll reduce the number of different data sources we will be obliged to maintain. Certainly, we already maintain all those electronic sources that are available and typically needed for any of the MIPS measures. So all now, as you look at the various types in existence now, all eCQMs are digital measures. They come from EHR. They have to come from EHR, but not all digital measures are eCQMs. In fact, it's difficult to think of remote monitoring, particularly in early stages of remote monitoring or patient input data, necessarily being in certified software. There's a lot of things that occur that they're not certified or won't be on the certification list for quite some time. So I think that is a commitment to continue alternatives to eCQMs. In fact, as Medicare introduced the subject of digital quality measures in the context of a view of the future, that future view acknowledged the inclusivity of most EHR-based measurement and the difficulty in getting that data together, and suggested that they knew they were committing to a process outside the EHR that tends to bring the data together and bring multiple data sources together into a common measurement platform. So I think you can count on eCQMs and MIPS CQMs, qualified registries, eCQM vendors to both be around for a long time and to evolve as the system demands evolving. Whether that evolution will converge them into a single concept is anybody's guess. But a reliable source of if you found a reliable source of measurement, there's no reason to expect Medicare rules will sunder you from that. In fact, with the existence of the APP, it's really spread it out again and taken it out of the sole venue of manual chart abstraction. So thanks again, Joan, for a great question.
Yeah, thank you, Joan, and Patricia, John, and Liz. Thank you as well for the great questions. I want to remind you again, if you have a question for Dr. Mingle, please leave it in a comment on LinkedIn or YouTube, or you can send us an email at hello@minglehealth.com. And thank you, Dr. Mingle, for sharing your insight with us today.
Thank you, Kyle, and thanks to everyone for the great questions. I want to be helpful. I want this to be useful to you. Please don't hesitate to correct or supplement my answers. Share your experiences, your questions, your comments. We can be smarter together.